this. Everything we're doing it is for our kids. It's their future, and everything is just going against us. This inheritance tax it's ridiculous.
Well, if you own a farm or land, you have an additional £1 million inheritance tax.
Jeremy Clarkson just brutally attacked the sitting Prime Minister of the UK without any fear or hesitation. And this time, it was because of Labour's new tax rules, which Clarkson argues would harm the British working class. And let's be honest, we all knew it was coming.
And he's betrayed us. He's lied to the British public. And I don't own my farm. I'm only the caretaker.
Breaking point. That's really what this is all about. This is the last straw that has broke the camel's back.
But what really pushed Clarkson over the edge this time was not just this newly applied tax, but Starmer's whole disastrous budget as well, because it's like Starmer's doing everything he can to undermine pensioners and the working class.
Did you invite Keir to your pub, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister?
No, he's banned. He's the first person to be banned. He's actually on a board in the hall. He's banned.
Why? What have you got against him?
Now tell me yourself, is it fair to burden future generations with taxes so high they can't inherit their family farms, or to put such a shaky budget that completely sucks their hopes for a better tomorrow? Well, whatever it is, at least we got Clarkson, whose latest verbal grenades revealed the true face of Labour and their leader.
What's the farmers going to do? I mean, honestly, what are they going to do? The ones who don't have Amazon food goods from them around and who wants to be a millionaire to top up the income. I mean, what do you do?
If you could talk to him right now over in Brazil, what would you say?
Rural Britain matters, farming matters, feeding the country matters. This is too important to ignore.
Okay.
So, it all began when Starmer, with his usual level of electrifying charisma, decided to champion some new policy that he probably hoped would make him look like a man of the people. His criticism isn't just about Starmer's lack of decisiveness, it's about authenticity. According to Clarkson, Starmer's public persona is about as convincing as an AI-generated politician. He smiles like he's just been asked to perform a magic trick he doesn't know, Clarkson allegedly remarked, probably while pouring himself another glass of wine. And let's not forget the zinger about Starmer's speeches. Listening to him is like watching paint dry, only the paint occasionally tries to tell you it's revolutionary. Starmer's principles also took a serious hit. Clarkson pointed out how they seem to shift faster than the gears on a Lamborghini. One day he's all about workers' rights, the next he's throwing union demands under the bus, faster than you can say PR stunt. It's like he's trying to audition for a role in a political soap opera, except even soap operas have consistent characters.
I think Starmer's one of the worst Prime Ministers we've ever had, and he's only been with us 81 days. But look what he's done in those 81 days. He's allowed the Chancellor to go ahead with a scheme where 4,000 pensioners could freeze to death this winter.
So here's the question. Did Jeremy Clarkson go too far with his fiery words? Or is he simply calling it like he sees it? One thing's for sure, he's not backing down, and neither are the farmers.
But Clarkson wasn't content to stop at policy or personality. Oh no, he delved into Starmer's public appeal, or lack thereof. Keir Starmer trying to connect with voters is like me trying to fit into a Fiat 500. It's awkward, unnatural, and everyone watching just feels sorry for the poor car, he quipped. If that wasn't harsh enough, Clarkson also pointed out the glaring artificiality of Starmer's attempts to appear relatable. You don't relate to people by showing up in your carefully staged photo shoots, pretending to enjoy a pint like you actually know what it tastes like. You do it by being, oh, I don't know, a real person. And speaking of staged moments, Clarkson couldn't resist skewering Starmer's lack of spontaneity. You can almost see the team of advisors in the background, frantically whispering into his earpiece, "Smile now, Keir, say something funny. No, not that. It'll sound weird." It's like watching a robot trying to learn human behaviour in real time, and let's just say the firmware update is long overdue. Then there's the issue of Starmer's speeches.
The government is it's only going to affect 565 farmers a year. We can't afford to lose 5 farms a year. We are a nation that's growing. There's nearly 70 million in the UK. We need to feed people, and it's farmers that produce that food.
Clarkson didn't hold back here either. He described them as a cross between a corporate training seminar and a lecture on health and safety regulations, both equally thrilling. According to Clarkson, Starmer's words lack the spark needed to ignite any sort of passion in the public. He speaks like he's afraid of offending anyone, which is a great strategy if your goal is to put everyone to sleep.
This is the biggest protest the government has dealt with over domestic policy since the election, and farmers I think they feel forgotten about, and they feel ignored, and they're very, very angry about this inheritance tax policy that the government say will help them pay for crumbling services, but the strength of feeling here.
Of course, Clarkson's sharp tongue didn't spare the media's treatment of Starmer either. The press fawns over him like he's the second coming, but let's face it, if he wasn't wearing a suit and didn't have that title, nobody would look twice at him in a pub. Actually, they'd probably move to another table. And then there's the matter of his opposition to the current government. Clarkson found it laughable that Starmer criticises the Tories for incompetence while his own plans sound like they've been scribbled on the back of a napkin during a particularly uninspired lunch break.
People this will affect. The NFU saying 70,000 farms could be affected, but the government actually saying only 500 estates a year will be affected by these changes. But one thing is certain, Mike, today.
And let's not forget the infamous Brexit fence-sitting incident. Clarkson couldn't resist bringing that up, comparing Starmer's indecision to a cat staring at a door, unsure whether to stay in or go out. At least the cat eventually makes a decision. Starmer, he's probably still weighing his options. Then there's Starmer's attempt to portray himself as a champion of the working class. Clarkson wasn't buying it for a second. The closest Starmer's probably come to working class life is watching reruns of Coronation Street, and even then, he probably needed someone to explain the plot.
Clarkson turned around to the crowd yesterday and asked them, he says, in front of a BBC interview, he says, and they were put in the same case as the government, he says, anyone here, that's not going to be affected with this, put your hand up. Nobody put their hand up.
Yeah.
So, it's wrong, it's not true, and tax is very complicated, as you know.
Clarkson also mocked Starmer's promises to fix Britain. Rebuild Britain? Rebuild what exactly? The man hasn't even built a solid argument yet, let alone a country. It's like asking someone who's never boiled an egg to whip up a 5-course meal. As for Starmer's strategy to win over the public, Clarkson found it laughably transparent. He tries to look like one of us, but let's face it, the man probably has a team of advisors deciding what tie he should wear to make him look relatable. Spoiler alert, it's not working. And then there's the question of leadership. Clarkson had plenty to say about that too. Leadership is about inspiring people, making them believe in your vision. Starmer's idea of leadership seems to involve standing at a podium and hoping nobody notices he hasn't actually said anything meaningful.
I'm just so emotional. Why do we as farmers have to do this? We shouldn't,
But Clarkson being Clarkson, he didn't just tear Starmer down, he also threw in some backhanded suggestions. Maybe Starmer should ditch politics and try his hand at motivational speaking for insomniacs. At least that way, his speeches would serve a purpose. Ultimately, Clarkson's critique of Starmer wasn't just a rant, it was a performance, a reminder that, love him or hate him, Clarkson knows how to keep people talking. Starmer, on the other hand, might want to take notes, or better yet, hire someone who knows how to handle criticism without looking like they're about to melt under the spotlight. As Clarkson might say, if you can't stand the heat, maybe it's time to get out of the kitchen, or at least stop pretending you're a master chef. The impact of Labour's proposed tax changes could be catastrophic for the UK's rural economy, with food self-sufficiency already plummeting from 78% in 1983 to just 62% in 2023. These new policies might drag that number even lower. It's not just the farms at risk. Entire industries that support agriculture, like millers, agronomists, and service providers, could also face collapse. This could result in skyrocketing food prices, fewer options for consumers, and greater dependence on imports. In short, Labour's meddling with farming might hit every citizen's wallet hard. Jeremy Clarkson has emerged as a powerful voice for British agriculture, refusing to sit idly by. Through his Times column and social media, he's blasted Labour's inheritance tax reforms, arguing that they'll cripple farmers' ability to pass their knowledge and land to future generations due to hefty tax burdens. Clarkson has encouraged farmers to hold on and weather the storm for the next 5 years until a potential change in government. His outspoken stance has resonated widely, earning him support from public figures like Kirsty Alsop and leaders within the farming community.
Plus the fact Jeremy Clarkson turned around to the crowd yesterday and asked them, he says, in front of a BBC interview, he says, and they were put in the same case as the government, he says, anyone here, that's not going to be affected with this, put your hand up. Nobody put their hand up.
Yeah.
So, it's wrong, it's not true, and tax is very complicated.
It's about land, it's about the collapse of rural communities and centuries-old traditions. Labour has tried to justify the policy as a fairness measure, claiming that 40% of current agricultural tax relief benefits just 7% of the wealthiest landowners. However, this framing obscures the reality. Small, hard-working farmers are also likely to be severely affected. expected. Rachel Reeves, attempting to defend the policy, insists that only a small number of farms will feel the impact, with mechanisms like tax-free allowances and long repayment timelines supposedly easing the burden. Yet critics argue that these reassurances don't match the reality on the ground. Calls for a comprehensive impact assessment have so far been met with silence, fueling skepticism about Labour's transparency and understanding of rural issues.
And it's a welcome change of direction by the biggest Western country in the world, by the biggest country, the most powerful country in the world.
The backlash has been swift and intense. Protests are erupting across the countryside, with farmers blocking roads and communities rallying together to voice their frustrations. Petitions against the reforms are gaining traction, and Labour MPs representing rural areas are starting to feel the heat. Some are reportedly worried about losing their seats as trust in the party dwindles among voters outside urban centres. The economic implications are equally concerning. Experts warn that these tax changes could exacerbate inflation and slow economic growth. To make matters worse, Reeves hasn't ruled out the possibility of future tax hikes, adding to the uncertainty and anxiety among both farmers and the wider public. As the situation unfolds, all eyes are on Labour to see if they can recover from this debacle. With Jeremy Clarkson leading a vocal opposition and rural voters turning away in droves, the party faces a steep uphill battle to regain trust. The coming months promise to be pivotal, not just for Labour, but for the future of British farming as a whole.